Welcome to my podcast. This is Mary Turderoff, and you are listening to Jump In with Mary. All right, let's rock and roll. Hello, listeners. Today we have the one and only Vicky Tay. I have met her in my own wellness journey. Her own company is called Vicky Tay Wellness, and she's a life coach and a yoga instructor, amongst a lot of other things we're going to get into. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Thank you. I'm really happy you're here too, Vicky, because you have given me a lot of pearls of wisdom. And we're going to kick it off with the first one. It's the first thing you kind of said to me when we met. We were doing yoga and I was trying really hard to get into some positions, and you said, put in 70%, do it at 70%. And I was kind of like appalled. I said, what? Like thinking to myself, because I've been conditioned through culture, family, law school, everything 100%, go hard, go home. And people say that with like a badge of honor. And you said 70%, Mary. And it took me, honestly, like I had to digest that. So can you dive into what does that mean? Do it at 70%, and why? Why not do it at 100%?
Sure. So we're getting into the real yoga here, and this is the yoga that I teach and that I specialize in. So we live in a world where we are programmed from very young to push, to overachieve, right? And sure, there are a lot of areas of life where that is very beneficial to achieve certain goals, self-motivation, self-discipline to get us to where we want to be.
Right.
But over time, it can compound if we don't balance that out with the opposite and giving ourselves grace in other situations to attain that balance. And over time, it can compound and be detrimental to our health on many different levels, emotionally, spiritually, as well as physically.
Right. That's beautiful. And it's a really new concept for people to actually live. Like, I am going to do this 70%. I'm going to be okay with knowing I could push a little harder, but I'm not going to. And that's what I've been practicing since I've met you.
Wonderful. And have you experienced any benefits as a result thus far?
I have less anxiety. Yes.
We'll take that, right?
Yes. Right. Because if you're doing everything at 100%, you're freaking depleted.
So a lot of my clients come to me. Many of them are women. Many of them are moms. They are also career driven as well, but they are also burnt out because of this mindset. And so going back to your original question, why do we go into every pose at 70%? So as not to injure ourselves, we have to ease into things sometimes. And through the breath and through time, then we arrive at our 100%.
Oh, yes. And when you say injure yourself, I also think of like spiritually injuring ourselves.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow. That is beautiful. Let's talk about being a life coach. So there is kind of a stereotype in LA. And by the way, Vicky just moved here from the Bay Area. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you.
Don't leave us.
It was actually, I moved from the DMV, from the East Coast.
East Coast. I keep saying Bay Area. I'm sorry.
Yes.
The East Coast. Yes.
People all my life have asked me, are you from California? Are you from California? It's my whole vibe, my energy. I finally feel at home here. So
that's beautiful. Can I ask why you moved here? Was it on a whim, or was this a very premeditated thing that happened?
It was a very sudden opportunity granted to me by the universe that I decided to take advantage of. But at first I was very resistant. I was like, nope, there's no way I'm doing this. But then I paused. Very important. There's a lot of power in the pause before you react. And this is yoga.
Wow.
Right? This is yoga in everyday life. That is where the real yoga is. And so I thought about it and saw it as an opportunity. So I decided to take a leap of faith. I moved across the country, and it's been the best decision of my life.
And I love that you got the universe gave you an offering.
Yes.
Your initial response was resistance, is what I'm hearing.
Yes.
But then you didn't reject, you paused. And in that space, in that pausing space, you decided to actually take the opportunity. And here you are.
Yes.
So we got to love the pause is what you're telling me.
Yes.
Got to love the pause, embrace the pause, give it time.
Yes.
Very cool. And you didn't just move here by yourself. You moved here with 3 freaking children.
I did.
So that's not like an easy move, but that's amazing.
Yes. And they love it here as well.
That's amazing.
So we all finally feel at home.
Great. Well, I'm glad you're here because I met you here in LA. So hopefully you stay.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes. And so going back to, I was going to talk about you being a life coach.
Yes.
Which you are. So in LA, there is this kind of stigma or stereotype about life coaches, like, oh, that's so LA, so LA. Like, what would you need a life coach for? And how could they help you? And I want to dispel and debunk that.
Sure.
So let's start with very basics. And then I want to get into what a life coach does when somebody comes to a life coach at rock bottom. So define life coach for the listeners.
Sure. So life coaching is about the present moment and looking ahead toward the future. The past is the past. It's already done. Yes, some of the past matters. It's how we arrived at where we are today. So I don't necessarily need to know your whole life story, just some details here and there that need to be touched upon, of course, and worked through before we can move forward. Because part of life coaching is we have to identify what is holding you back. And for the most part, you're the only person in your own way.
Right.
And behind that is a lot of fear for most people. So we identify what are those fears? Where did they come from? And let's blast through them so you can move forward and live the life that you truly deserve.
Yeah. That's beautiful. And what about the setting, just visually? So I think of like a therapist's office. You go and you sit on a chair or there's a desk in the room. Is it a little different? Do you go to their home? Do they come to you?
Sure. Great question. So I conduct most of my sessions virtually. So my clientele is nationwide from all over the United States. It's very seldom do I meet with my life coach clients in person, but believe me, the magic still happens through the screen because I have a knack for connecting with people, even if it's virtually.
Right, because I was wondering, like, can you really connect on that level through Zoom?
Absolutely. I have witnessed a lot of miracles, a lot of transformation. Really beautiful stories of transformation, actually, in clients who I've never met in person before.
Wow.
Yes.
So let's talk about like the most extreme situation, hypothetical. Client comes to you and they're at rock bottom and they really don't see a reason to live to see the next day.
Sure.
How, and I know it can get really deep and layered, but just an overview, like where do you start from when somebody is so down and under? What's the starting point? Can you give us like some reference, some frame of reference where the life coaching would begin for that person?
Sure. So I have definitely had a few clients who have had suicidal tendencies, suicidal thoughts. It's a very delicate situation for sure. And that's one of the more extreme cases. There are different levels of rock bottom. So suicide is one of them for sure. But
what are other levels of rock bottom? Give us some examples.
Sure. For example, I mentioned earlier, burnout. A lot of women come to me and they're so used to giving so much of themselves and not replenishing their reserve. So they're running on empty. And they just are at their wits' end. They are asking, what is the point of all this? Because they've lost their passion. They've lost themselves. They've lost their identity after having children, after getting married, after a career. And so they don't know who they are anymore. So that's one level of rock bottom. Another level is a lot of my clients come to me and they're on this hamster wheel. They're just going through the motions. They don't have purpose. They're working a job that they're not very happy at.
That's so relatable, I just have to say, for a lot of people. Yeah.
Okay. So a lot of people have conformed to a mold that they don't want to really adhere to because it doesn't align with who they truly are and who they were meant to be on this earth in this lifetime.
Right. And it's hard to live day to day like that.
It is because you're not in line with who you truly are. We are born into a society where there are societal norms. Our parents, they want the best for us, but they want us to fit this mold that perhaps they couldn't fit into. You know, it's a generational thing as well. We're passed on down expectations from our ancestors that were passed on down to our parents that are passed on down to us. And are we here to break the cycle?
I feel like you are.
I am for sure.
You are. And I say that with a really positive undertone.
So I am definitely the black sheep of my family and I'm proud of it. Proud to be the black sheep because most often the ones who are the black sheep in the family are the ones there to stir things up, to shake things up, to break those cycles.
I love that. Can we hone in on that? Because the black sheep, there are a lot of people who feel like the black sheep in the family. Tell me first, before I go into that question, background, like what nationality are you? Were you born and raised here? Just a little background.
Sure. So I'm first generation Vietnamese. My parents immigrated here in the 1970s and they literally escaped the Vietnam War. My father was one of those boat people.
Wow.
And my mom had a little bit of a different story. She worked for American Express. And at that time in the 60s and 70s, it was a really prestigious position to be a bank teller working for a big corporation in Vietnam in her 20s and 30s.
Wow.
So long story short, American Express put all of their employees on a plane and flew them out to escape the war.
And she ended up here. She met your dad here?
They met in the United States, yes.
Wow. Okay. Thank you for that background. So you're from sounds like a traditional Vietnamese background.
Very.
And I'm from a traditional Armenian immigrant family, immigrant parents. And black sheep, going to black sheep.
Yes.
I feel like I want to know, like, you have a beautiful tattoo on your neck.
Yes.
You have dreadlocks. These are not tradition. This is not a traditional aesthetics that an immigrant. I could just see your immigrant mom and dad saying,
"Who are you,
Vicky? What is happening? Are you having a midlife crisis?" That's what my mom would say.
Yeah.
So tell me, because it does take courage to dress and look the way you want to look. And I know for me, I'm still working through that.
Mm-hmm.
Even to wear big earrings is like, wow, that's a lot. So tell me, what was that like? Like, you changed your aesthetics.
Yes.
Did you get pushback from immigrant mom and dad and family? And tell me a little bit. And how did you push through that pushback?
Sure. So this is a topic that needs to be talked about more. And I call it a culture clash.
Okay.
And this is very common in people who are first generation and their parents who immigrated from another country. So people who immigrate from other countries tend to have deeper cultural traditions, values, so on and so forth. And in America is so new. Our traditions and culture does not run very deep at all in comparison to other cultures such as India, Armenia, the Middle East, right? The culture is so rich and runs thousands and thousands of years.
Yeah.
So the two cultures are going to be like oil and water, right?
Right.
So just speaking from personal experience, it started in about middle school.
Oh, I thought you were going to say much later.
Middle school to high school.
Okay.
It started ramping up. So I was always different. I had my own interests from a very young age that did not fit the mold whatsoever.
Like what?
I wanted to play soccer so badly. I wanted to take karate and I wanted to break dance.
Woo, breakdance.
Where did this come from? From a little Asian girl who grew up in New Hampshire, of all places. Very homogenous. It was not diverse whatsoever. So where did this come from? It was just innate passion that started at a very young age. And
you had the courage to express it to your family?
I did.
Okay.
I really wanted to do these things. And my parents, being so traditional, were like, already, are you crazy? Who are you? You're not our daughter.
Would they say these things?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Like, no. Girls, little Asian girls don't do this. They don't play sports.
Right. Neither do Armenian little girls. Yeah.
You're
You
not going
dance
to break
ballet
dance.
and you play the piano.
Exactly. Very similar. And that is what I was forced to do against my will. I was forced to play piano for about 10 plus years.
Same.
Hated it.
Same.
But as an adult, I actually appreciate it because I came back around to playing piano and it was very joyful, actually.
For sure. But it's just like about the norm. Like I wanted to do the drums and it was like, oh my, you're a deviant.
Yes.
A girl playing the drums?
Right. I love playing the drums as well. And that was never supported. So
right. So you did let go. Like, so you're a kid at this point and you get told straight up, no way. And you let it go. You don't fight, right? You let it go.
No, because as a young child, you are
what authority do you
kind
have?
of powerless.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. So you give in, you go with the flow. Where do you break out again? Like college and
sure. So
adulthood?
I was considered a rebel by my parents, especially in high school. I was just being a normal American teenager doing normal American teenage things, but they thought I was out of control, they thought I was the devil. Like, who are you hanging out with? What are you doing? Why are you staying out so late?
Right.
You know, and I was just trying to hang out and I was trying to have a social life, which in American culture is pretty important.
Right.
Right. You learn a lot about yourself. You learn your place in life. You learn about hierarchies, you know, whether you're a girl or a boy. You know, I'm talking about like the popular crowd, the alternative crowd. You know, you learn your identity. That's where you begin to learn your identity.
Right. And there are categories to choose from. I'm going to guess because I'm not familiar with your culture, but I'm guessing like Armenians in Vietnam, it's like girls there is no socializing. You're primed for marriage at very early adulthood.
Sure.
And family rearing and I'm guessing that was your parents' kind of idea of what you should have just been a good little girl until you were ready.
Oh yeah,
for that lucky suitor.
Yeah. So marriage wasn't
not pressed upon.
No, in my family.
Okay.
But I know in Indian culture it is. For example, arranged marriages still happen. You know,
but they weren't bugging you about that.
No, for me it was grades.
Grades.
Study. Get good grades, get straight A's, be that good little girl.
Yes.
And I was not that good little girl. I had a lot of fire in me. I wanted to be adventurous. I wanted to take risks.
Yeah, I could feel it. Yes. And I'm thinking and they see that as a curse.
Yeah.
We see that fire inside as a blessing. Right? Yeah. It's a blessing to have that fire and yearning to have adventure.
It is,
because otherwise you're dead inside. But they see it as a curse.
Yeah.
So you really swim against the current.
I did.
Do you still find yourself swimming against the current, or has the fight ended?
Sure. So I'm a lot older now. My parents are a lot older now.
They gave up.
Yeah. They don't say much to me anymore, but I've also put up boundaries, which is not talked about in Asian culture whatsoever.
Okay, you put a boundary. How did you do that and around what age? After having kids yourself? Like way, way later?
It was never spoken about. I just put up my own boundaries and put a little bit of distance between
like physical distance?
And myself.
Yeah.
Well, circumstantially, yes, there was physical distance put between us. And now we live across the country. So we actually don't communicate that often. And I know from a lot of other people, they've had to purge people that weren't good for them. Acquaintances, friends, and also family, cousins, and then closer relatives such as siblings, and then parents. I have worked with a lot of people who have had to block their parents because they've come to realize that even though they're your blood, they can be very toxic, and you can put up healthy boundaries for your own peace of mind and happiness that you deserve.
Agreed. You have to, like you said, claim your worth.
Yes.
You told me it's claim your worth. And I'd say we're going to get into that, but I feel like this is one of the many ways you can claim your worth.
Absolutely.
You know, just because you're a blood relative doesn't mean that I'm a doormat.
No.
An eternal doormat.
No, it's just not right.
So you set the boundaries.
Yes.
They're there now.
Yep.
And you're living on your own terms.
I really am. And I'd love to speak more on this
Yes.
because I'm here to lead by example for a lot of people in general out there, not just women, not just people in general. A lot of people are not living their true potential. They're very caged, and a lot of facets that make up who they truly are have been buried or suppressed. And it goes back to programming from birth and beyond. So the first 7 years of life are the most important. You're very impressionable. You're just a sponge soaking up everything from your environment, and that shapes who you are because your subconscious is being programmed. And as adults, our lives are driven more by the subconscious than by the conscious mind. We think it's the conscious mind. We think we're making conscious decisions, but it's actually the subconscious mind that is the primary driver of our actions.
Which is developed between birth and age 7, is what you're saying.
Correct.
Wow.
And so that being said,
So we were talking about like how to reverse engineer, how you've been raised to live on your own terms, which is what you're doing.
yes.
Yeah.
So it took me about 40 years to arrive at this point. I'm 46, by the way.
That's amazing. You're a beautiful, young, youthful, vibrant woman.
Yes. So I'm 46 in human years, but mentally, I truly feel like I'm in my 20s. And it all starts with
Yes.
mindset. And so to answer your question, I look the way I do unapologetically.
Ah, I love that. Yes.
And it
Yes.
takes being real with yourself and being honest with yourself and embracing all facets of yourself.
Yes.
Okay. And there's a lot of freedom in that.
Wow.
I'll be honest. About 1.5 years, 2 years ago, I wrestled with locking up my hair and having this hairstyle because I actually cared about society and what society would say and whether or not I would continue to gain new clients because of my look.
That's a good point to talk about, actually.
Yes. And being on the East Coast, the people are much more conservative.
Okay, then they are here?
Much more conservative than the West Coast,
Okay.
for sure.
And by the way, that concern you have that listeners might have as well is not an illegitimate concern. It's a concern with foundation. I mean, it can affect, right? It can affect somebody's business.
Yes.
We're not saying it can't.
Yes.
Yeah. You're saying that it was a part of your decision-making process?
Absolutely. I remember being torn. If I do what I really want to do, it might cost me business. It might cost me clients. People might see me and judge. But you know what? Whoever is meant to cross my path is meant to cross my path. And I have continued to get new clients nonstop. Before I moved from the East Coast and now be on the West Coast, it hasn't stopped.
It's amazing.
And it comes down to just being who you truly are and being authentically you.
Right.
No facade, no masks. And there's a lot of freedom in that and liberation.
And would you agree it takes time? You mentioned that this journey started when you were closer to age 40, or you were like, I am releasing myself of other people's judgments.
It was a process. It didn't happen overnight for sure. But there was definitely a turning point for me when I turned 40. I was in a long-term toxic marriage with a narcissist. So that's a whole story in and of itself, but I call him my greatest teacher.
Oh, that's beautiful.
As adverse as those years were, I learned so many lessons that have brought me to where I am today. And I have never been more happy, more at peace, and more free.
Yes, 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 yes. Okay, that is so beautiful. On so many levels, because that's not a small thing to live with a narcissist, emotionally survive it, and then have the courage to leave.
Yes, there's a lot in there.
So you got through all 3 phases. and fourth, raise children. But you got out. What gave you the courage? And I'm asking this as like a bigger question, not like a more zoned in question. To leave, like, was it a moment where you have an epiphany? Like, there's got to be more for me. Like and this is for listeners who are in a situation
Yes.
that's tough.
Mhm.
It could be identical to yours or not. It's just tough. And they are like, this is not, I can't grow in this cage.
Right. And that's how I felt. I felt like a caged bird. So I'm here to lead by example and to break the stigma of divorce. I'm actually pro-divorce. I believe that a lot of relationships, whether they're friendships, platonic relationships, romantic relationships, are like seasons. They're meant to come in your life for a reason or many reasons, for the lessons.
Right.
And once those lessons are learned or realized or have gone through, once the karmic relationship has played out, then they can fade out of your life.
With love.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
Yes, it's okay.
Yes.
I don't think that people are always meant to be together forever when they get married.
Absolutely.
It's all about lessons.
I love that. And I love the word you used, karmic. Did you say karmic lessons? The karmic lessons learned.
Yes.
And sometimes it can be for good companionship that lasts a block of time.
Yes.
Again, we're primed to think like going back to our first topic, like efficiency. Everything has to be efficient. Even marriage, like you got to be efficient. You got to have a family. But maybe it's just good, loving companionship.
For a time.
For a time.
Yes. And that's okay.
With an expiration date.
Yes. It's okay. And so I'd love to speak to the listeners out there who feel stuck.
Yes.
Scared.
Yes.
Don't know what to do. That was me.
And lonely.
Lonely.
I don't know if you felt lonely in that situation, but
Absolutely.
it begets loneliness.
Absolutely. I found myself asking the question, what is the point of this marriage? What is the point? Even when he's here, he's not here mentally.
Mm-hmm.
So
when was it like, because, a lot of times in life, with marriage or a really horrible, hostile working environment, you find yourself having these thoughts. The critical brain is talking to us, and we're judging, and we know that something is wrong. And then these thoughts kind of accumulate. Was it a moment where the straw broke the camel's back? Was it more steady and slow, and it was happening in your mind, and you're like, now I'm ready? Because I'm imagining more of like a aha epiphany. It's time.
So for me, I had been ruminating on divorce for a time, and it went back and forth and back and forth. I wanted to, he did not. He wanted to, I did not. And then finally we met at the same place where we both wanted to separate for good.
That's an interesting concept.
Yes.
Wow, yeah, because the timing is off sometimes. Who wants what? And it's switched.
Yes.
It's switched.
Yes.
That's interesting. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So there was a moment in time where you both came to the table.
Yes. And we were both ready.
Wow. Okay.
And that is when my life completely turned around for the better. Yes. And it's been a journey, but I was able to discover and rediscover myself and become more and more aligned with my higher self, who I was meant to be in this lifetime, what I was meant to do. I discovered my gifts as a life coach, as a yoga instructor, and it's been the biggest blessing because I get to work with people on a very intimate basis and be the catalyst for major transformation in their lives.
Yes. So your blessing has blessed other people.
Absolutely.
May I say, because you have gone out there. And did that journey start after the divorce?
It did. It started right at the same exact time.
Your work journey is what I mean.
Yeah.
life coaching. And
Yeah.
that's beautiful.
I didn't know what I was going to do.
beautiful.
I had no career. I'd been out of the workforce for so long.
Oh my gosh, let's talk about that because that is scary.
It is scary because like you have these children. I don't make my own money. I gave up my power because he was in total financial control. How am I going to live? How am I going to survive? How am I going to make it?
And you know what? A lot of times people are, oh my gosh, how are you not in financial control? I'm running a household with 3 kids. There's a lot going on. You can't also be sifting through all the documents. I mean,
Yes.
it's division of labor.
It is.
And you get you drift from what's going on the other side.
Yes. And for me, I will never make that mistake again. I wasn't working. And so I just handed over everything to him. But it's easy to be financially manipulated in that circumstance.
Right. So you felt a loss of power in your not being part of that process?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that's hard to recover from.
Yes.
Right. Because you're just running the show at home.
Right. Managing the entire household.
Which is a lot. It's very time consuming. Okay.
It's a lot.
So you really rearranged your life. Was the aftermath disastrous or was it a smooth walk away?
We set intentions for it to be smooth, but it was definitely rough.
Okay. Okay.
One of the most hellish times of my life, but the only way out is through. So you have to get through these times. But in every adverse situation is opportunity.
I love it.
And in this opportunity for me, it was growth and becoming better and better versions of myself and discovering that I was stronger than I ever thought I was. You're stronger than you know.
Yes.
You think that this situation, divorce, is going to break you, but you either allow it to pull you down or you use it as leverage to become stronger and a better version of yourself.
For sure. I was thinking this divorce didn't break you, it made you.
It did.
I mean, talk about, you are the epitome of someone who leveraged adversity. And for the listeners, I really believe, and I think you will feel the same, anyone can do that. There's the Vicky Tay effect. You are such a powerhouse, but I believe most women can do that. They can come out alive and they can start over, which is what you did.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm here as an example of that. But everybody has to go through it themselves firsthand to believe that.
For sure. I want to talk about post-divorce and newfound freedom, this journey into self. You took a little trip all the way to India.
I did. This was about 1.5 years ago.
Okay. I have never been there, but let's start from the beginning. I can't wait I don't know this story, so I'm also learning for the first time. How did you initiate it? Was it like you were online, Googling? Tell us, how did it happen?
Sure. So I heard the call to go to India in 2020. And we all know what happened in 2020. So it wasn't meant to happen then.
You were arranging to go and then COVID hit?
Yes, correct.
You were actually in the process.
Yes.
You set the time. Okay.
Yes. Just starting to do the research, looking for places. And my goal was to go for yoga teacher training.
Okay.
So in 2018, 2019, somebody asked me, would you ever think about teaching yoga? And my response was, hell no, never.
Interesting. Okay.
Well, never say never.
Someone just randomly asked you that?
Yes.
Wow.
Because my self-practice was pretty strong. I was practicing at least 3 to 5 times a week, vinyasa, which is a great style of yoga for strengthening, a lot of stirring up of energy in the body.
Yes.
And I think that had to do with my own transformation as well. But it was during this time that somebody asked me that question. Well, never say never.
So you said hell no question, because I feel like sometimes the universe plants a seed. And did the wheels start turning at that point?
I think that there was a switch that went off and seeds were planted.
Right. Okay.
For sure. But I often say that throughout my whole entire life, I was divinely guided. I feel like my hand has been held on so many occasions, and this was one of them. So a few years later, going to India didn't align, but another opportunity did. So the same program that I went through for my life coaching offered a pilot yoga program. And so that's where I got my first certification, was here in the US.
What's a pilot yoga program?
So it was their first offering for a yoga teacher training.
Okay.
And because I knew these people and because I experienced so much success through their life coaching program, I decided to enroll in this yoga teacher program. And half of it was virtual because of COVID, half of it was in person. And so I decided to take that leap, and I got my first 200-hour certification, and that got the ball rolling fast.
Okay. And this is still in the US. You're in the US. You've done all this here.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And then sometimes you want something so badly and the universe says, nope, you got to wait. And maybe the manifestation will happen years later. But it has to be in divine timing. Everything in divine timing and alignment.
Oh, divine timing. What a good sentence. Okay.
Yes. And then other times you feel like you're not ready and you're thrown into the fire. And that's what
so
happens.
True. That's what happened after?
That's what happened. I was in the middle of my training, and for some reason, I decided to put up a profile on Thumbtack. I don't even know where the Thumbtack app came from, and that's how you found me.
Right. But wait, you put a profile of what?
Of
just
being a yoga instructor.
Okay. Okay.
And I started getting clients.
Wow.
In the middle of my training. Hadn't even completed it yet.
Okay.
And it just took off from there.
Wow.
So fast forward to a year and a half ago, what was that, 2021, 22? I felt the call to go to India very strongly. And I went to Rishikesh, the birthplace of yoga. I wanted to go to the source, to where yoga was invented, and to learn the real and authentic yoga.
Okay, walk us through it. Is that a process? Is it like you sign up online? Does anyone get in? Do you have to be screened? What's the process?
Sure. So I just did what anybody would do. I hopped on Google and did a Google search and looked up the best yoga teacher training schools in Rishikesh. And there are many. It's all about yoga there. It's a very spiritual place. People from all over the world travel there to learn yoga and other holistic and spiritual practices.
Wow.
And so you just have to go with your gut.
I was going to say, you just blindly, I mean, you don't even know. Is it a hocus pocus? Is it a legitimate program?
There's a lot to sift through, for sure. And I didn't have a lot of resources. I didn't know anybody who had gone to Rishikesh firsthand and experienced yoga teacher training there. So it was up to me.
I love that. Thank you for saying that part, because in many ways, I feel that about a lot of things in life. Like this podcast, my training has been in the legal industry. So it's like, I don't know anybody who can show me X, Y, and Z. And that's what you were in. Like, but you left and you got on that freaking airplane and you booked it. And I was thinking you were going to say, because going to India for a month, that's a big deal. I thought you were going to say a friend, somebody you knew was like word of mouth told you, call the center.
No.
And you can attend. So you took a leap of faith, like major.
Yes.
Okay. So you book it online. You really even have a person to contact.
No.
Okay. I love this story. So you get the kids situated,
Yes.
Obviously.
Yes.
You get on the plane.
Yes.
You're on the plane. Are you thinking a little bit like, what am I doing? Are you having these thoughts, or is that source just calling you so strongly?
I was divinely led.
Okay. So no like feeling on the plane of
trepidation, fear. No, not at all.
Okay.
I'm on my path.
You're on okay. You land. You're on your path. You get there.
Yes.
What is it like? Is it like a 8 to 5 program? Are you led by somebody? Do they speak English?
They speak English, yes.
Okay. So kind of walk me through What happened that month? Was it very structured?
It was very structured and it was very life-changing. I'm affected by that experience to this day.
How?
So yoga as a philosophy, it's pervasive. It's a lifestyle and a mindset. It's not just a career. It's not just 60 minutes in a session on the mat with a client. It's not a job. It's a way of living.
Yeah, and I can see when we have our sessions that you are living it. You're not just teaching it.
Correct.
But how one would ask, or the listener may wonder like me, why can't that be learned in a program here? Isn't there anything out in the US? Why go all the way there? What did India give you that you couldn't have found here?
Well, I wanted to learn the real and authentic yoga from where it originated.
Yes. So where was it like professor, student, with their instructors? Are you doing half physicality, half intellectual reading and writing?
Sure. Our days were very structured. It was a very small group. I lucked out. It was very intimate. There were only 3 of us.
English speakers, or were you the only?
Yes. One was from South Africa.
Wow.
And one was from the US, but was living in Brazil.
Okay.
At the time.
Very cool.
So there are groups there at this ashram, and I have to mention that it was the Himalayan Yoga ashram that I attended. The groups can get big, up to 10, 15, 20 plus participants. And so I lucked out. I like more intimate settings. And so there are the 3 of us that went through this journey together.
And even that wasn't you planning it. The universe, you didn't know I'm signing up for a group of 3. Okay.
Right.
Okay, wonderful. So you get there. There's a group of 3. Do you do everything as a group of 3?
Most everything.
Okay.
Yes. We had most meals together and we went through this rigorous training together. So back to your question about our schedule. We woke up very early every morning to attend a pranayam class at 6 a.m. Pranayam is breath work.
Okay.
So it was a very intense 60 minutes of pure breath work, breathing.
Wow, 60 minutes of just breathing.
Yes. Wow. And different techniques of breathing.
Okay. Every morning, so 6 to 7 a.m.
Yes.
Breathing workshop, essentially.
Yes.
Okay.
And so loosely, there were breaks. There was lunch. There was free time. But there was also yoga philosophy. And we also learned about Ayurveda, which is an ancient practice, a way of health. It's the science of health, pretty much.
Okay. The science of health. Okay.
Yes. And it's one of the oldest sciences of health, in addition to traditional Chinese medicine. These practices are thousands of years old. That is where the real wisdom is. Natural ways of prescribing medicine for all kinds of ailments, medicinal plants, herbs, diet.
Let's talk about that. I mean, in the US, we are really struggling as a country with diet or nutrition. How much of what we eat do you really think matters? Tell us.
It matters so much. It's everything. What we put into our bodies, and what you're talking about is food, but it's in addition to that, it's what are you watching? What are you listening to? What are you ingesting in those forms? What are you reading? Right? What is the content that you're taking in? So it's not just food as well, but food is everything. And in the US, everybody's eating so much processed food that goes through so many hands, so much travel, so many machines to be put into this neat little package. And there's a lot of marketing and advertising behind it to try to get you, the consumer, to buy their product. And they don't care about your health. They care about making money.
Right. So what kind of diet were you doing there in India? Like, did they give me like an example of what you were consuming just to keep the clarity in your mind going? Because that helps you be clear.
Yes. So the majority of the country, the majority of the population in India they're vegetarian.
Right.
Um,
Are you vegetarian?
this is an interesting question, something that I'm going through in real time. So I was vegan for 5 years until I moved to LA.
Ah,
Go
what
figure.
happened?
I'm trying to answer that question myself. It's
Okay.
just a different energy, a different vibration. And this isn't talked about enough. People talk about veganism and it became a trend and a lot of people hopped on the trend. But not a lot of people talk about how that can be for a season as well. If you become vegan, do you have to commit for a lifetime? And are you committing a sin by going back to eating meat after you do practice being a vegan?
That's a good point. It could be seasonal. And you're right. There is a lot of judgment about it.
Yes. And so for me, that time of being vegan was necessary for me to purge a lot on a lot of different levels, emotionally, spiritually, and physically, to become more clean and clear and gain clarity of my path and direction, and to become more easily connected to source.
Do you feel veganism helped you achieve that? In that
100%,
moment? In that moment?
100%. I had to go through that purification and detoxification.
Okay.
But then once that was done, my body started naturally craving meat. It started with sushi. And I was like, oh, this is bad. This is not good. This is going against my beliefs. What I was teaching and preaching to so many that I strongly believed in. You know, a lot of people wanted to lose weight that were coming to me.
Through veganism? Lose weight through veganism?
Just in general.
Okay.
And I didn't push it upon them, of course, but I highly suggested going that route, eating plant-based, just incorporating more and more whole foods, meaning raw fruits and vegetables, food that comes straight from the earth, as straight from the sun as possible, because this is living energy that's translated into your body, as opposed to processed and dead foods and dead flesh, meaning meat.
What an interesting description. So how did you convince yourself that that kind of labeling, because it's a label to even say like, I'm vegan, right? It's a label. And that's why I think we get stuck with someone saying, oh, well, not anymore. And you're, oh, well, what happened? So how did you delabel it and say, no, it's okay. It's okay. What was that like? Like it was a self-talk.
Yes, I coach myself all the time.
That's what we should all be doing.
Yes, it's actually healthy to hear healthy, positive talk and those sorts of voices in your head.
Right, which is an active effort. It doesn't just happen. The positive voices. What I mean, we have to actively work on having the good, positive self-talk.
Yes.
So you did that for this vegan journey.
Yes. I just had to embrace what my body was naturally craving and say, it's okay. It's called, I think, intuitive eating, not to put another label on it, but just be free.
Right.
Allow yourself to be guided. You know, balance is definitely key. You know, you can't go overboard in one direction or be too extreme in one direction.
Agreed.
I think everybody's trying to achieve balance.
Yes, I agree on that issue. I have never tried to be a vegan or vegetarian. I don't oppose it, but the friends that I have who have really gone hardcore in one direction when their body has craved it, that's the only way I can think of it as well. And they've gone the other way. It's been like so intense, like having red meat twice every day. And then that just doesn't feel like there's any happy medium there.
Right. Well, there's a learning curve. You learn a lot along the way. You learn what your body needs. You know, a lot of women crave red meat right before their cycle or during their cycle, you know, because of the iron deficiency, right?
Right. Again, intuitive eating. So that goes to your body knows. Your body is having a natural cycle and knows that you need meat.
Yes. And
or whatever, or
there's
chocolate.
also right. It's also a genetic thing as well. What did your ancestors eat? That plays a large role. What blood type are you? That plays a large role as well. There are many people out there who try to eat vegan and it is just not going to work out for you because of your makeup, your genetic makeup. People have gotten very sick. It's really real.
Wow. Okay. So it's something to take into account.
For sure.
Wow. Okay. And the other day, you're introducing me to matcha.
Yes.
Raw matcha? I don't know. Are there differences in matcha? No.
There are many different brands out there, and you have to be very discerning. You have to do your research and go for very high quality, ceremonial grade from the source, and that is Uji, Japan.
Okay.
That is where the real matcha is grown and harvested in a really ethical and intentional way. It's a very traditional ritual that originated in Japan, and now it's, become a lot of other things with matcha lattes. There's so many variations from the original tea ceremony.
Yes.
But we live in a modern world and we're constantly evolving and changing.
Yes, and acclimating. I wanted to ask you about self-respect. So we were discussing, I was sharing with you how I have been struggling to set aside, people call everything meditation now, but meditation in the sense of like 5 minutes just to get my shit together and get grounded after a chaotic morning where everybody's screaming and talking at you and right, you're like making a 10-egg scrambled egg breakfast. So I was saying, Vicky, I need to find this time, and I want to say I can't, which is not true because I can. And you said to me, well, the way you described it to me was in terms of self-respect, and that really resonated with me. Do you remember that conversation?
I do.
Okay, can you walk as we're getting towards the end of our session? I want you to explain to them what you explained to me because it really made sense and it worked.
Sure. So self-respect goes back to self-love, which is such a buzz term these days. We weren't taught this growing up. But,
no.
But we're here to break those cycles. And so now self-love is such a buzz term. Let's teach our children what self-love means at an early age so they don't grow up and have these issues that so many of us adults run around with.
True.
Right. So as it relates to self-respect and adhering to something that you set for yourself, a goal, oftentimes people find it successful to put things into their calendar, to schedule it like a meeting, like a doctor's appointment for yourself or for your children. And if you set a meeting up to meet with somebody because you respect them, you're going to adhere to that and you're going to uphold to that and try to be punctual because you respect them. So why not give yourself that same respect?
Yeah. That's a powerful thought.
Yes. And put that goal into your calendar and it's non-negotiable because if you say, oh no, I can put that aside, then you're disrespecting yourself. Whereas you respect others, but you're not going to respect yourself and set aside these 5 minutes where there's 1,444 minutes in a day. You can't take 5 out for yourself to reset. You deserve it. Everybody deserves that.
That's such a powerful way of looking at it, especially that idea of like, you're right. Like today, we met at the podcast studio and we had a time block and we both respected each other. And when I think of the number of times I haven't shown up for myself, it comes down to that. So I need to find a way to respect myself more. That's a beautiful way of describing it.
Yes.
I love that so much. Okay, so to kind of wrap up, because I could really talk to you on and on and on about all these things, I want to focus on how we can set intention. Another buzz term is, I'm going to do this with intention. I'm going to be intentional. I'm going to set these intentions for myself. Again, it's become a buzz term, and it gets lost, and it has gotten lost a little bit for me as well. And I think I want to set an intention for the year. Or every year it's my birthday. I say, okay, it's my 38th birthday, and this year I'm going to set these intentions. Is there a system that you have for yourself that you can share? Like, for example, someone had told me once, writing it down really helps. And I used to write down 40 intentions, and you know where that goes. It goes to nowhere.
That's a lot of intentions.
Right. And somebody said, Mary, just stick to 5 or less. So in that sense, any tips for listeners and for me of like how we can set these annual or semi-annual intentions, or something that you do that really helps?
Sure. So first and foremost, just do everything with purity of heart.
Oh, love that.
No facade, no fakeness, no bullshit. Just be really real with yourself in all things. And so set your intentions with purity of heart.
Love it.
A personal practice that I have done over the last 10 plus years is every year on New Year's Eve, everyone else, the whole world, for the most part, is out partying or celebrating.
Not you and me. I sleep at 9 p.m.
I'm in my bed with my journal at midnight, setting my intentions with purity of heart for the upcoming year.
What a visual. What a beautiful visual. So you're like journaling your intentions at that.
Yes.
At the midnight hour as
yes.
a new cycle, a new year cycle begins.
Yes. And it works because I have looked back on all of those journal entries and have been able to check off boxes. And a lot of the accomplishments have felt like miracles. Like at the time, you don't know how or when you're going to arrive at this goal, but magically you do.
Wow. And you keep it all in one notebook? Is that how you've done it?
Several, because I've moved so much and there have been so many life circumstances. So they're all over the place in a handful of different journals.
Yeah. And there is something special about looking back,
Yes.
kind of like reading your own diary and seeing the evolution
Yes.
of your goals.
It's very powerful.
Yes.
To look back 3 months ago, 6 months ago, a year ago. Could you imagine your life today if you were then able to fast forward and see a snippet of your life now? Would you believe that you're living your current life? I know I couldn't.
Wow, what a question. What a great question. Yes, I'm going to dwell in that. That's a badass question. And with that, Vicky, I'm going to let listeners dwell in that too, and end this beautiful 1-hour journey we had together by thanking you, because I feel a lot of gratitude in my heart. We are newer friends.
Yes.
And I don't take that for granted. Thanks for sharing your journey, your vulnerability in life, and your wisdom with us.
You're so very welcome, and I humbly receive your kind words, Mary. Thank you so much for having me on your beautiful platform.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, that's a wrap. Until next time. Dear listeners, if you like what you heard, you can subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple, and follow me on my journey on Instagram and YouTube. Until next time.